The fields of Poland that were formerly rich in Pomeranian soil are currently being attacked by a swarm of wild boars that are ravenous for food. They wipe out crops and drive the villagers to the edge of their sanity. Now the counterattack has started. Will the boars or the humans emerge victorious? Find out what the video's hidden message is, shall we? At the designated meeting spot, our group gathered together in the wan light of the morning. Without any hesitation, we dispersed to our pre-assigned places, armed with weapons and hunting dogs, and made our way to our respective spots. When I finally arrived at my hiding place, I made sure that my rifle was in good condition, and that I remained completely silent as I waited for the ideal opportunity. 15 minutes of tense waiting passed. Suddenly, the sound of dogs barking while hunting could be heard reverberating from the depths of the forest. I focused my attention intensely, observing every minute movement with my eyes. On the other hand, a wild boar suddenly emerged from the woods like a bullet and began furiously charging over the field that was coated in dew. I brought my rifle to my shoulder, took a precise aim, and then pulled the trigger. Instantaneously, it fell to the ground in the middle of the spacious, grassy area. Gunnar had already taken up position to the east of the room, when a large wild boar that weighed close to 400 pounds suddenly charged out of the thick grass. The pace at which it was moving caused everything to appear to be blurry. The gunner, however, did not flinch. He took aim with the composure of a seasoned marksman and fired in rapid succession, ensuring that each shot was accurate. In a matter of seconds, the beast collapsed more than 100 meters distant, bringing an end to the frenzied pursuit in a faultless manner. Our group proceeded to make further progress, this time heading in the direction of a field that was covered with dry grass that reached chest height. The tracks that were etched on the ground led us to spread out and follow them. I was able to see a black figure gently foraging from a distance. It was a wild pig, and it was entirely focused and unconscious of its surroundings. I moved stealthily and cautiously closer, making sure not to make any noise in the process. I took a few moments to steady my aim, and then fired the trigger when I had located a suitable view position. A single shot was all that was required to eradicate yet another danger from our land. We relocated to a field that had just been harvested, which was the ideal location for wild grazers to congregate after having their harvest. When the gunner arrived at his position, he noticed a herd of wild boars rooting around at the edge of the field. They were completely unaware that they were being observed. The first shot was fired by the gunner, who did not hesitate before raising his rifle and firing it. As was to be expected, the herd became agitated and dispersed. Almost instantly, a series of rifle bullets was fired. A number of the boars were knocked down, but a couple of them made a break for the field next door. Following the tracks that were plainly etched in the soil, our squad began moving toward the adjacent pasture. As soon as they realized they were not going to let them escape, the pursuit caused us to disperse. Within the confines of the pasture, there were 2 boars engaged in the activity of rooting. I aimed for the one that was larger. My decision to fire the trigger was made without any doubt, and it must have weighed more than 400 pounds. On the location, it fell to the ground. On the other hand, the other responded rather quickly. The creature dashed straight into the woods and disappeared without a trace. What actions would you take if a wild boar weighing 400 pounds charged at you from within a few feet of you? You can leave ours in the comments section below. It was getting dark outside, and we were racing against the clock to find the boars that had gotten away before the woodland was completely consumed by darkness. After 10 tense minutes had passed, all of a sudden, the barking of the hunting dog could be heard echoing from the depths of the forest. A shot from a gun burst through the air all of a sudden. This was the gunner. The wild boar, which was in the process of charging at a horrifying pace, passed out suddenly. Incredible was the scenario that unfolded. During that precise instant, Gunnar transformed into the very embodiment of nightmares for any hapless boar that came into his line of sight. There is a growing trend of wild boar herds in the murky plains that are becoming more arrogant and reckless. They are not only tearing up row after row of cornfields with their razor-sharp tusks, but they are also destroying arable land and leaving it stark and desolate, as if it had been destroyed by a wild hurricane. They shamelessly defy any attempt to drive them out of the lush woodlands where they are hiding deep within the forest. Rather than concentrating exclusively on planting, farmers in this region are now required to protect every square inch of their property as if they were defending a fortress. In our search for these dangerous critters, we continued our journey from the beginning. However, despite the fact that these crafty monsters never expose themselves in a manner that is predictable, we were prepared to confront them, even in the darkness of the dense forest. We started looking for wild boar footprints and carefully examining each bush in an effort to make a determination about the path that our prey was taking. We were startled when a wild boar suddenly appeared in our line of sight. I raised my rifle without any hesitation, sighted it, and adjusted it so that it would follow the trajectory of the shot. A shot was fired from the gun. Wham! The bullet was at the right place. Almost immediately, the wild boar fell to the ground without taking any further steps. A little time later, we relocated to a different area, where we heard rustling sounds coming from deep under the thick shrubs. It was at that moment that a wild boar charged out in a panic. Without any hesitation, another member of the crew swiftly raised his weapon, took aim, and pressed the trigger. There was a shot fired, and it hit the animal square in the head. Before it fell to the earth, it stumbled and stumbled again. We continued our search, but as we moved deeper into the forest, we had the distinct impression that we were approaching the territory of creatures that were more audacious and dangerous than we had ever encountered before. In the event that you found the video to be enjoyable, please leave a comment below. We hadn't even left the ambush position when we heard the ruffle of dry grass all around us like a wave while we were in another location. A group of wild boars, including at least a dozen of them, made their way into the area in order to forage. They were unaware that they were the target of the attack. I gave a signal to the crew to remain in their current position and wait for the ideal opportunity. Everyone raised their sights, held their breath, and pressed the trigger as soon as the lead boar lowered its head to the ground to root. Wow! There was an explosion of gunfire. Despite the fact that the herd was in a state of fear, additional rounds were fired in a barrage that sounded like war drums. The hunt was a genuine one, rapid, accurate, and definitive, and it took place on a field that had appeared to be so tranquil. Following the ambushes that were set up beneath the thick forest canopy, it was time to move the battleground to the air. This time, airborne hunting from a helicopter is the most effective method for seizing control of the situation when the terrain gets too congested and dangerous. A briefing was performed before flight. Duties were assigned between the pilot and the gunner. Hotspots with high boar activity were identified, and thermal gear and infrared scopes were prepared. With its rotor blades blazing, the chopper took off and began to circle over areas that had previously been elevated. Due to the expansive aerial view, we were able to capture even the smallest of movements, such as a heat signature that was glinting through the grass or the curvature of a boar's back that was highlighted by the light of the setting sunday. The pilot dropped the aircraft's altitude and stabilized it as soon as the target appeared. This was done so that the gunner would have the greatest possible shot. I was able to maintain a steady breath while maintaining my sight, and then I pushed the trigger. The bullet traveled through the air and landed with pinpoint accuracy in the vertebrae of the boar. The sound of the gunshot reverberated throughout the cabin, and within the next instant, grass dust began to explode. Without hesitating for a moment, we proceeded quickly to a different zone and once again continued our search for thermal traces. A planned judgment was made for each shot, and there was not a single centimeter of error. After a few minutes of intense concentration, many targets were eliminated, and the meadow returned to its previous state of silence. Using a helicopter to hunt boars is not only an efficient method, but it also demonstrates the importance of precision, speed, and excellent collaboration. In the event that you have any inquiries, give a 0. Immediately following the initial assault, we focused our attention on the heat signatures that were still visible on the screen. A new group of boars was heading in the direction of the trees, and they were easily visible between the branches. While I was getting ready for the following round of fire, the pilot banked the chopper to a horizontal angle that was horizontal. As the boars started to disperse in various directions, the pressure of the situation began to increase. Not much time was available to us. A precise punctuation mark was placed on a wide battlefield with each shot that was fired. After the initial shot, some of them slumped to the ground, while others writhed in agony until finally succumbing. The bullets came down in a manner that was not haphazard but rather meticulously planned. Boars who were in a state of fear tore through the fields that were still healing on the ground. From a higher vantage point, we did not miss anything. Instantly, after the final group had disappeared into the forest, the pilot instantly banked the chopper, which allowed him to begin a strategic retreat. Following an hour and a half of unrelenting chase, the task was finally completed. With spite of the fact that our clothes were drenched with sweat, the sensation of triumph overpowered everything else. This was more than simply a pursuit, rather, it was a strategic conflict between man and untamed nature, involving the use of intelligence and technology. In the event that you found this pursuit to be as exciting as a genuine action film, please do not forget to leave a comment and share your ideas below.